Welcome to our 5 on 5. Please be joined today by John Watt, a former legislator and the president and CEO of JWA Public Affairs. Good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Greg, always good to see you.
Yeah, we're talking today about the initiative process in Oregon. Why is it so important?
Well, the one thing that Oregon has that a lot of other states don't have is a way for citizens to be involved in the legislative process. So we have the legislature that convenes once every 2 years, but quite often, and nowadays particularly, there are people who say, hey, listen, they didn't address this. I'd like to see this be done. So there's a process in Oregon called the Citizens Initiative process where they can put their idea in, and it has to meet certain tests where they can go out and get signatures for that. Should they get enough signatures and they're verified by the Secretary of State, then it goes to the ballot for people to vote on to see who agrees or not.
Yeah.
Two different ways to do that. You can do it on a constitutional measure or a statutory. And constitutional, of course, once it's entrenched in the Constitution, it can't be changed except by a vote of the people.
Okay.
So someone would say, well, what about our existing Constitution? Can that be changed? Certainly, using that, you have to get a lot more signatures for that to get on the ballot, but then certainly that can be done.
Wow, okay.
If it's a statutory measure and it goes to the legislature, it passes. The legislature does have the ability then to make changes to that law.
They can amend it. Can they throw it out?
With a majority vote.
Can they throw it out as well? They can, okay. So
Sure.
that's why there's a higher bar as far as number of signatures required for the constitutional
Right.
amendment. All right, so I'm curious, the reason we're bringing in talking about this is 2020, big election year, no surprise to anybody, but there are a lot of initiative petitions in the process for 2020, is that right?
There are. This is the end of 2019. The election's in November. At this time, today, there are already 62 initiative petitions that have been filed with the Secretary of State.
Wow.
Now, that doesn't mean they're all going to be on the ballot.
Sure.
They have to go out and get the signatures. Those signatures have to then be verified by the Secretary of State. And quite honestly, there's a court test that has to happen. It has to be a constitutional appropriate. You can only have it address one subject. It can't address more than that. So when your initiative is reviewed, the courts will then write a ballot title for that so that it's a summary. We all see that when we vote, that people understand a little bit better what it is.
Fascinating. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break.
Great.
Much more in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. We're going to hear with former legislator John Watt talking about initiative process here in Oregon. So what is the difference between an initiative and a measure?
Well, it's quite simple. An initiative is the status of the petition before it's adopted. Okay, so once you get all your signatures, they're approved by the Secretary of State, then it becomes a ballot measure.
Okay, that seems pretty straightforward. All right, so we're talking during the break about tricks, that people that are being used to circumvent the process. Can you break those down for us?
Well, quite simply, when laws are passed, a lot of the times people who want to get around it or whatever will research and look at loopholes. So there are some ways that you can manipulate, but it's harder to do than people would expect because there's oversight all along the way. On that. So while people may try, it's pretty hard to do. And if you're caught, there are consequences for that.
Okay. Well, that's why we have laws, correct?
That's
Very
exactly
good. Okay.
right.
So as you mentioned, in part one of the interview, right now, 2020, already like more than 60 initiative petitions in the process.
Right.
How can our viewers follow the status of all of these things? Is that possible?
Well, absolutely. All of this is public record. It's on the Secretary of State's website. I think you go to the website, as I recall, you go to Votings and Elections, and then there's a section for initiative petitions where you can search those, and there's a database that'll tell you each one of those what the status is once it's been introduced and approved for signature gathering.
Okay, as everybody knows, 2020 is going to be huge, and now they're going to have all the depth that goes with all that political
Could very
knowledge.
well be. Well, I'd just finish up by saying a lot of times, even though there are 62, it's likely there'll be 5 to 7 that will be able to get on the ballot.
That makes sense. It's hard enough to vote sometimes
Thank
with all the
God.
research that goes into it.
Right.
I appreciate that. Good to see you. Thanks very much.
Good to see you,
All right.
Craig.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.